Welcome to The Words and the Bees.
This is a podcast where we basically just brainstorm and attempt to come up with a script idea.
In this, our first episode, we come up with an idea that we're thinking about using for our Halloween special next year. We talk a little bit about death, zombies, the stages of grief, and family. Enjoy. Hi, Jacob.
Hi, Jeffrey.
So, what are we going to try and create today?
How about we make something about zombies?
That sounds great.
Okay.
I've had this idea for a while. This person is, at the beginning of an outbreak or whatever, either way, their family members get turned one by one, and instead of killing them and putting them down, they lock them into, their bedrooms and, nail the door shut because they can't bear putting them down. And it's a really short idea. My thought of it would be just to, follow the psychology of this person and what them dealing. And I'm thinking of, a lot of shots, not even showing the zombies a ton, because instead you would have them, walking around the house and there would be, banging or moaning or just the ruffling around of zombies from the bedroom doors of their actual rooms and stuff like that, and there'd probably be blood and stuff around from whenever people got attacked, and just it would be like a singular character that you're focusing on with the other ones out in the other rooms and how they psychologically kind of deal with that.
There's a thing, if you don't see the enemy, it's just usually it's more scary.
I think the fact that it's not only that, it's also when you don't see something in horror where a character you like gets killed, or when someone's getting stabbed or murdered, you can show it and it looks gross. And zombie movies are really cheesy ones are really bad about having really cheesy gore that's right in front of you, and it's not scary and it's not realistic. It's kind of funny, but when because it's not only the bad guy off screen, it's also the horror happening off screen of somebody's mother or wife or husband or daughter or son horribly suffering or turning into this monster. So it's both things. The monster's off stage and the horror's off stage, but the person is there living in it in front of our eyes on the camera. It can be really claustrophobic. It's a smaller house, and I would I'm thinking almost like a trailer would be really good. You have really thin walls, and then you also have you can kind of see the doorways right around you, and so from one area you could have multiple just that spot where you have the audio of them looking at one doorway and then looking at another and having it. So where does that go? I think writing into that situation isn't that tough, but where does that end?
Well, obviously it has to end with the person getting killed.
You think?
Probably.
In what way? Is it a suicide thing, or they get bit?
We could easily do it suicide because they're going crazy.
I don't want it just to be depressing, though. You know what I mean? that is a horribly depressing end. I don't want to just make something that's basically well, life sucks and everybody dies. Okay, so it's like heaven. Everyone wants to go to heaven, and everyone, or not everyone, but especially in the Christian belief, the idea is you're going to rejoin your family when you die. Well, instead, this person rejoins their family in their home. What if they get bit or something like that? Or maybe they even just snap and they go around and they just open all the doors and let all of them out. And that way their family's all going to be together. It's kind of a depressing but also happy ending.
Okay, but the person dies.
Yeah, they would die. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. If they get, something happens, they're going through it all psychologically, and they're thinking about, oh my God, what do I have to kill them, or should I just let them be? Are they in pain? Are they not? And they're dealing with all these things, these thoughts, dealing with the thoughts of it instead of the gore of it and the violence of it usually throughout it. And so it's a really study into a person and who they are. And then in the end, either they get to the point where they go so crazy that they decide I'd rather be dead, and they just open all those doors and let their family eat them, and hopefully they eat them, and then he or she comes back, or they are in trying to fend off, because I'm assuming there's zombies outside trying to get in, and that's part of the problem too. Or they fend off one, or they are trying to get some, they're trying to tie a window closed or something, and they get bit, and they know that they're going to change if we're following those standard zombie rules. And they realize that, and they get to a point they start thinking, and then it could even be cut to them thinking about it and seeing it, a little bit, other cross-cutting stuff like that, and then gets to the point where they just go to these doors and they just kind of open them one by one, and then we kind of close on them, like maybe sitting down on the couch, like that kind of family gathering place, or sitting down at the dinner table, and all of their family is swarming in at them, and we just sort of like cut on a close-up to them and then cut to black.
That could be an easy short.
I like that idea, actually. I like that ending, too. Okay, so we've gotten into story outline a little bit, but I'm going to say, ending is, we'll go with, for now, bit, because I kind of like that instead of it being suicide, just because that makes it a little less like I don't want to have the message of, oh, give up and be with your family. That sounds really negative when it's that way. But when they're bit and it's inevitable, that kind of becomes a little more morbidly beautiful. Mm-hmm. So they get bit, and they open doors, and they sit down. Dinner table or couch? I almost like the view of the couch, of somebody sitting down on a couch, because then you can have people coming from behind and around. Whoops. I like the view of a couch, but at the same time, dinner table that is where families traditionally come together.
What if they were in the kitchen? They make food before.
Yeah.
And then they set the table, and then they open all the doors.
Oh, wow. There's something extra weird about that. And it could be they make their last meal. Yeah, okay. Sits down at table. At table, I'm going to say, makes food.
And roasted dog.
Makes food?
I feel like they should have a pet or something that they kill for the last meal.
I don't want them to kill it when they're going to die, though, and then eat it. I think if they had to eat it out of survival, basically, if that happened in it. So, the question is then, and before they're bit, obviously, there is a lot of them coming to terms with it. There's almost there's got to be some stages to that we break down. Where does it start? Does it start? I don't think we start this at the beginning of the outbreak, because that's a much longer film, and that doesn't inform our story. That where the zombie outbreak started or how they found out does not inform this story, as far as I can see.
I think it'd be better as a short. So. Yes,
me too. This is a short. This is definitely a short idea. The microphone's picking up my gurgling sounds. I can hear it a little bit. You have to cut some of those out, maybe. I'm a human being, and human beings are made of disgusting fluids and gases and bones. Do we start after the whole family is already dead and they're alone in there? I mean, we don't even actually have to show any of them until the very end. But what we see is that we have to make it obvious through visual cues and maybe what they say, that in each room is a family member. Or something like that. We show an empty, high chair, or a high chair, and then we show, a door, and we hear scratching that. Somehow we make it known that it's coming from the bottom or something like that. Or we see a picture of someone with that person, at a wedding ceremony, a wedding picture, and then they look at another door, that kind of thing. So we could do that, and that'd be really short overall. Although you can do a lot with them dealing with stuff while they're walking around. I mean, it could be a few minutes. I'm saying it doesn't have to be 30 seconds. Yeah, a lot of cinematic stuff and a lot of selling with their facial features and selling with...
Would we have a narrator or just silent?
I don't know. I kind of like it silent. I like that as a silent
ambient
idea.
Music.
Yeah, just every once in a while music that kind of ratchets up the drama for that moment or the fear or whatever. Or do we start with a couple characters or the whole family? And they get the one-by-one dispatching almost seems like it would. That's more of a movie. That takes longer.
I feel like it should be everybody's gone and you tell the story
and they're just alone
talking. Yeah.
I do like that. I was actually thinking the other way at first. I was just thinking about how, and that solves a lot of problems. How do we get the characters bitten, and then how do we get to the point where they hide them in that or push them into that room? There is the potential for flashbacks to show, if we feel like we need to show them shoving someone in the room, or trying to we could even do a flashback where we don't even show the other people, where they show them holding a rifle or something and their hands are shaking and we hear the moan or something, and then instead then we see a door slam and then quick cuts of them like nailing a door closed or something like that. We could even start with that, actually. That could even be the very first scene if we wanted it to be, and then we never see that person, but then we cut to them, we cut that really quickly together and frenetically, and then they go and they sit down in their chair or something like that, and they like stop and think, and then we slowly through visual things show like the different rooms, and that all the doors are like nailed closed and stuff or something like that.
I really like the idea of like the pictures. You see the picture, and then like we could cut to a flashback of them at that event that
yes.
the picture is, and then something like them like cutting to them killing them or whatever.
Yeah.
Or getting locked up.
Yeah, getting locked up or something like that. Or like one could just easily be like that's the first one that we see, and that could be like the stages of as they kind of have to go through the grief for each individual, and then it could even be like we don't necessarily want to use the same method for each character that they're showing, but one could be where they do look at a picture and they think of a memory, and then we somehow intercut that with when that person got, not obviously the memory in the picture wouldn't be when they got turned or when they got bit or whatever. It could be almost like a nightmarish thing where it blends into, from this old memory, tapers into this other memory of when they were attacked and were getting like bit and torn up a little bit or something, and just we get their reaction as we hear them, that person screaming off camera. Like if it was a daughter, if it was a little girl, like she's playing in a park or she's smiling on a swing or something like that. And then you go from that to her, like you could even maybe have the character look over and you kind of do that like switch to darkness thing, and the little girl is surrounded by these figures closing in on her like in a different location, and then you just hear like, you see the close-up of the person's face like running, and like I'm giving you gestures, nobody can see what I'm doing, but to see her face as the main character's face running towards that person, and then just hear like sickening like sounds or something while they're screaming, and then we cut back to them just sitting there in the chair staring at it, or they like slap down the picture or something like that. So we could use different stuff like that to reveal the characters.
Well, I feel like if like two people are married, one of the characters dead, and the main character's like a mom or dad, and I feel like the picture should be of the wedding. Yeah.
And that's the easy reveal for that's the room where the husband or wife is. I kind of feel it does seem like the angle is that it's a husband or wife, right? Like that's what it feels like, because it's easier to tell that story that way. And that just seems like what this story is. It's about your family, and so you usually think of it from the patriarchal and matriarchal standpoint. When it comes to actors, though, especially female actors, we know a lot more high school aged females and males that could actually do the role versus playing someone that's older, you know what I mean? It's actually like work. And it bears, I think it'd be productive to actually think for a minute, what if it was one of the children instead of one of the parents? Like, what is that story about then? There's a bit of a difference there, too, because when you lose your parents and you're sort of taking over the role or something like that.
Like you have to grow up quicker.
Yeah. And you have to make certain decisions, and you're literally the man or woman of the house now. And it could be they had a single parent or something like that, too. Because we could always use something else to reveal who the other person was in the picture other than a wedding photo. Because actually a wedding photo, well, we just show a wedding photo. We don't have to stage like a wedding scene to cut to and from. It could just be the picture of it. But that's interesting, too, to think about. I mean, there's what I'm talking about, and I know you're getting this, too, but whoever it is in the family, whatever family member it is, that informs the like things they're going to go through. We almost need to kind of nail that down before we really talk about how they come to terms with this stuff. So we're talking about our character.
We just need to decide who's going to be main, which it needs to be a kid. If
you think so?
If it's us,
if we're doing it, yeah. There is some more innocence to that too. If it's a younger person, there's some more. We're like breaking ground more on like
emotionally, because teenagers are usually more emotional than adults.
And that is like kind of a growing up story. That's part of growing up, and it still is as an adult, I can tell you. coming to grips with death and with the loss of other people is something adults are still dealing with, but especially as a young person, you're becoming a person through those things sometimes. Those that are young that have been through tragedies, as both of us, you in your teenage years and me when I was in mine, know a lot about. Those tragedies kind of define you in some ways, and how you react to them defines you in other ways. And there's just some things that it changes about you that you just can't help it. It just happens. So that's kind of interesting, having a teenager that has to deal with this, and we're going to kill them ultimately, but we're trying to make it into a growth thing where they kind of accept, there's also a lot of teenagers like not wanting to be around their families. That's a thing. Yeah. That's a normal thing. And because you're shedding your family in a way, or you're getting some independence for the first time, so you go crazy with it. So that's an interesting angle where the teenager is realizing how much their family means to them, as most teenagers at a certain point eventually do, or they eventually realize like, wow, I really miss those times with them. And some don't, which is fine. Some have terrible families and they don't ever want to be around them again. Yeah, I think there's a lot there. So we're thinking a teenager, probably high school age. We're probably shooting for 17 to 18 because we want somebody a little more mature. I'm guessing not somebody super young. We want somebody that was physically strong enough to do things like push someone into a room. Yeah. And but they don't have to be like super strong.
Not Bryce.
And we don't have to pick this, but it will kind of help when thinking about the story. Are we leaning towards a male or a female for our main character? People have that in their mind, when it's a female that's under duress, that, oh my God, that poor woman, versus a male, it's like, become a man and go get them. So we're, playing off our audience's expectations and even prejudices. I tend to make a lot of characters female in that, first of all, there's just a lack of a lot of representation of females in media, despite what anyone wants to think about it, especially as lead characters. And the ones we know especially are much better actors. Like, there's a few people I have in mind right now, whereas I think about, not that we don't have males that can act, but I'm kind of...
Usually most people that sign up for this stuff are females.
Especially in the drama department, we have a lot more, because boys are too cool for it. Videography tends to pull in more males than drama does, but because it's a little cooler. I think we're leaning towards female. Let's give her a name for right now.
The thing is, whenever I try writing stuff, I always wait till the end.
For a name? Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually. Let's just give her, Jane. Let's just call her Jane for right now. I was going to call her Ellen for Ellen Ripley, but I'm not going to be that much of a dork. I'm just going to bring it up like a giant dork. So, we've got Jane. We start with Jane holding a gun. I'm guessing a gun. Or, maybe she could just have, a hammer or something.
I feel like a rifle would look better.
Okay.
Granted, we could probably just use a BB gun, but...
Yeah. No, we can... We're filming that off. That's actually something I got to run by administration.
I'm pretty sure
because we're a high school club, we have to be careful about that. We clearly can't bring a gun or a fake gun onto campus, but I don't know what they think about us putting in a film that we're making.
I think it'd be fine.
Yeah, that's... Believe it or not, I actually have to clear that with administration, and I'm almost... That's one that I feel like I have to clear with administration.
You didn't clear us, putting our bodies in danger with drinking hot sauce, okay?
That was one where I felt like it was better to ask for forgiveness than permission, and I felt like I could get away with that. This is one that if there was a backlash and I didn't have administration behind me in the beginning, I could get sued or fired. Whereas if I go to them and I say, hey, this is what we're going to do, this is how we'll use it, I will take out, the firing pin, there will be no ammunition on site, but it will be the vision of a real .22 rifle there. Can you get behind me on that? And that's how I'd have to, because that gets into legal ramifications where if somebody actually is like, they used a gun, even it's for a movie, it's meant to be for the purposes of telling a story, and I don't think we're glorifying gun violence through something like that.
Also, we probably wouldn't, on camera, there wouldn't be a person on the other end.
No, there would not. You would not actually see a person at the end of the barrel.
Therefore, nobody has to be there standing.
Right, and so we wouldn't be pointing at anyone anyway. But, the imagery that comes out is, obviously movie imagery is very powerful because people see things and freak out about stuff like that. So anyway, I will talk to them about that. I'm almost thinking, though, I'm imagining what a, bloody hammer that she's already used to crush bad zombie skulls, not her family. And she's holding it there, and, she's holding it up above her head, which I'm physically doing now for those of you that can't see me, and about to strike, and then she just sort of pushes the character back off screen. You know, we don't see the character at all, but she pushes back like she's pushing a person because she just can't do it, and she drops it down and she goes outside, and then she nails the door shut or something, if we can get doors that we can nail shut. Either way, she has a weapon. She can't do it. She goes to sit down. We take in the scene.
But we also have to think about if we nail the door shut, how we're going to open it in the end.
You're right. Yeah, okay, well that solves the problem of having to do that then. She just closes door.
But then they're going to be like, oh, how did they get out in the end? Oh, no.
Well, I think in the end, like, she goes and opens the doors and then goes and sits down. Like, she goes and she opens, she, like, she'll push things in front of it, and then we'll have quick rapid cuts of her either just opening the doors and then going and sitting down, or unblocking each door really quickly and opening it, and she sits down, and then the family slowly shifts in, and that's the first time we see him. But yeah, you're right. I think adding in her pulling nails out from each door, that's a possibility, though. It would be good quick cutting of her doing all that, because you're like, what is going on, you know? And then she pulls all the nails and then goes back and just swings open each door and goes and sits down, and they close in, and then it cuts. I feel like it needs to be something else in the end scene, like either a song she sings, or a thing she says, or something that comes up from the flashbacks, or just there's a thought for the future. I don't think we're going to figure out what that is right now. So we've got our start, we've got our beginning. Yeah. Then she goes to sit down, or she goes in the other room and leans on something exasperated or whatever, and that's when we start taking in the image of the room around her, and she starts looking at the other rooms and seeing that there's people there and stuff like that. What about her? I mean, do we kind of want her to go through an emotional roller coaster? It's not just here she is, she's sad. We want it to go through.
We want it to look like she's actually depressed.
Yeah, and that she's changing emotionally, and that she's actually going through something from beginning to end, like stages of grief.
Having a mental breakdown.
What are the stages of grief? Can you Google that really quick and let us know? I don't remember in order. I know it's like sadness and
I think
acceptance
the first
and all that.
step is denial.
Denial, I think so.
Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
Okay, that's a pretty easy template.
Yeah.
To follow. The thing is, I don't want it to go. Obviously, you don't want to quick cut through that. Like denial, she's like, "No, this can't be happening." Anger, no, she breaks something. You know what I mean? But we could intercut like her flashbacks and the reveal of the other family members. I feel like we need to establish pretty quickly how many people there are. We don't want it to just, like see a family photo that she looks at first.
I feel like a typical family would be 5.
Yeah.
Parents.
Yep.
2 siblings.
Yeah, so we're to more characters.
I feel we're not gonna be able to do a baby though. I don't think. That's
a tough one, but if we never show it, you know what I mean? Like maybe the baby just isn't one of the zombies.
Take a doll and just fling it into the room.
Well, what I'm thinking is, see, this almost here's 2 schools of thought. Like one is that the baby is the last one we find out about because that's the most emotionally hard hitting, and the baby is just gone. There's not a baby locked up in one of the rooms. The baby is, we see like the empty cradle, or even like with blood on it or something.
What if we had like the window open, like it got out of the room?
Oh man. Oh man, this is super creepy. I'm almost
or if we like have the door open whenever she goes to open.
I'm just thinking the baby was so small that it didn't get turned into a zombie. It just got eaten. It's just gone. There's not enough baby to reanimate, is kind of what I'm thinking. Or, and this is terrible to even say, there is a baby, but the baby's not locked up in a room. The baby's in a crib, and we never see in the crib, but we hear it every once in a while. Like the baby's in a crib in maybe the other room or in a room that's open. She even walks by and looks over and sees the crib. That could be the last reveal where she sees the crib, and all we see is like push the camera up, like it keeps pushing in really close, almost like it's gonna go over and we're gonna see inside of it. And then it stops with her just sort of, and we cut to her as she gets over and just looks down inside and sees with horror on her face that what she knows is already there. And all we hear, like we'll even see, like we'll get one of those cradles with the lining and stuff, and we'll just have something like moving up against it a little bit, and like weird like groaning but baby noises, like a baby zombie noise. And oh my god, that's so horrifying though, isn't it, to think about having
baby zombies seem like they'd be more scary.
Yeah. Oh, and also just devastating emotionally. Like I feel like it would be one of those things where it's like that's super messed up. Okay. So parents and sibling, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Is it a sister or a brother? Baby? Question mark.
I feel like it would have to be a sister because brother would probably be main character if it was a brother.
Well, not if it's a dead brother. Zombie brother.
It would have to be like a really young brother.
Yeah.
If it was.
Not necessarily. I mean, in a zombie apocalypse, things would just happen. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. You get surprised by something or get bit and you don't know what's going on. I don't know. Is it using too much to have? Because we're pulling at the heartstrings and the stereotypes here intentionally, with a young girl who's stuck on her own, dealing with her family all being dead yet reanimated in her house. Also thinking about a baby, like possibly a baby, and that's terrifying. Do we want it to be a sister too, so we have that same feeling, or is that pushing too hard?
I feel like sisters are usually closer together than a brother and a sister, because that's brother and sister usually fight,
true.
And you would have more of an emotional connection if they're close.
Yeah, sister it's easy to make that into a real heartstrings thing too.
And we have more girls that try out for movies.
True. We'll only have boys. We'll only have boys for crew, yeah, which is fine. Or we'll need some zombies outside, or at least like hands hitting on the windows, kind of thing. The shadowy hands, that kind of stereotypical zombie story thing. So, what are the stages again? It's denial, anger.
Denial, anger, bargaining. Really, dead serious. Don't know what that.
Huh?
What would you be bargaining for?
Maybe if it was maybe if she goes up to the door of one of them and starts talking to them through it and begging them to respond to her and to remember who they are. That could work. That could be pretty emotional too. That would use the voice acting of some of our actors too.
Then depression and then acceptance. And acceptance would pretty much just be
the
opening.
End. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that actually. Okay, so, and we can make each one. The depression would be the baby, and general spiraling after that. Spiraling out of control, as in.
I feel like most stereotypical families have a dog, too. But
I'm going to put pet question mark right here. So denial to me, if we consider these in kind of, we don't have to stick to this entirely, but denial to me is like that first thing when they are sitting down and we get that sort of reaction of them just being a little bit laughing about it almost, like that sort of I don't even believe what's happening right now.
Going insane.
Yeah, going insane, I should be losing my mind, I should be crying, but this can't even be happening, there's no way, where I am. I'm surrounded by an ocean of dead bodies outside, and then my own family's dead in their rooms, and I'm stuck here in this container, basically, just as, waiting for death almost, or I want them to be alive, not even accepting it, or denying even that she's in danger. So are mom and dad both in the picture, or is it just one parent?
Oh no, it'd make it more depressing if it was one parent, but if you have connections to more people, it makes it sad too. I really don't know.
Gosh, I don't know. I'm on the fence about that. It'd be a lot easier with one parent because it's one less story to tell, and it's more convenient because we're talking about doorways, right?
Yeah.
Each door is a person, and if
it's also going to depend on the location, how many
yes,
rooms.
Yeah. We can always cheat in other locations, but
parents get locked in the same room.
Yeah, but that I almost don't like that as much as one person behind a door. I mean, we could put another parent in the bathroom or something. We could even have a scene where, that's where they die or something because they're in the bathroom trying to, we just see the other person reacting with them mostly, and we see that person. But once they die, if we have any flashbacks, I think we should make it a rule that we see the other people. I think we've kind of discussed a few where we kind of have to see the other people when they're alive. But once they are dead or dying, we should never show them. So that keeps that horror off screen and keeps up to that very end spot when they all kind of walk on together. I'm going to say one parent for right now.
Okay.
So mom or dad?
I feel like stereotypically, if it was a dad, it'd be a bad relationship with them. Therefore, it should be...
It could be. So you're thinking a dad, but a bad relationship?
I feel like it should be mom because more emotionally, it'd be better if she had a good relationship with the parent. Because, dad stereotypically, are we going to have them, we need to come up with, a little bit of backstory. Are they going to be divorced?
Is it a good family, too? Or is it a happy family or not?
Would it be post-divorce, or did one of them die, or...
If we went with one of them dying, we could use that in the story as part of, especially if it was recent. Maybe if it was recent, it could be that's part of what this story is the process of grief, of losing a family member. I don't know who would use as an adult female. Who do we have? I guess we shouldn't worry about that in the writing phase, but it is something that's...
Who would be an adult male besides you?
I could do it. That's the thing. I think I could do it and actually pull it off. Whereas I don't know who else. I don't know what other adults we could get, actually, that aren't early 20s adults. You know what I mean?
When in doubt, we get Delaney's dad again.
That's true. Yeah. He does pretty well. All right, anyway, then. Okay, so let's go down this rabbit hole. Let's think, if it was a recent death, the family's dealing with that loss, and then the zombie outbreak happens. But we're conflating the two together because we're making it because if it's recent enough that we're showing that it was very recent, even by the fact that there's a pamphlet from the funeral or flowers that are still alive with the in memory of on it, wrapped flower, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that would be an easy way to show that had been a recent funeral. That's easy fodder for whenever she goes with the bargaining, she goes up to her mother's door or father's door, either one, and is saying, I can't lose you two kind of thing, please tell me you understand me, that kind of real heart-wrenching stuff. So, but if we do that, we are blatantly making it in a large part about grief, about losing your family. I think it kind of already is that, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Considering you looked up the stages of grief, so...
Yes, okay, yeah. Well, that's taking more shape then. We know what our big story points are here that we're trying to say. We know what we're trying to get across, and we're trying to get across a positive thing about the acceptance of the loss of your family and the loss of yourself, even.
Letting them kill you.
Well, no, because she's already going to die. She's already been bit, so we're establishing so it's not suicide, but by embracing that you and a family can always be together in a way or something, or that you're always going to be a part of each other.
Okay. How are we going to have her get the bit, though?
I think it would be something like...
This is where we can bring the pet in. The pet gets out of the house.
It could be, yeah. The pet runs off and she goes out. I've seen that in a few zombie movies, though, where there's definitely one, especially where this pet gets away, or runs away, and that's why it was in the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
And then, at the end of it, it could be the next morning, and the pet's just clawing at the door
to get in.
And then it gets eaten.
I don't like the second tragic ending you're boiling up here. It would be something like that, or it could even be because where do we end with? We go with depression, and then it could be the door busts open, or something breaks, and one of them starts getting in or something, and she fights them back, and she gets the door blockaded, but then we show a close-up and she's been bit. Or she tries to leave, she tries to run away, and she gets outside, and I don't want to take the camera outside of it, except in flashback possibly. I don't really want to take the camera outside of the house at all. I don't even want shots outside of the house, really, unless we put it just at the very beginning or the very end. I kind of like the idea of keeping it very confined and claustrophobic and stuck in this house. So it could be that she's trying to get out and run away and leave or something, and then she gets attacked and we hear it, or she is trying to do something. Yeah, how does what? Like it was like she's trying to tie close something, or it could be like the windows get busted open or pushed open, and she grabs some rope to like tie something close, or something like that. And then she gets, like we just see her like screaming with her hand out, like, and we hear a crunch or something, and she pulls it back in, and she's got this bite wound or something like that. So a parent has recently died. The family was reeling from that. One by one, those family members got picked off, but I don't think it matters. I don't think we have to establish in what order the family members died, because there's a lot we're not going to tell them. There's a lot that's just not that's not important to the story, such as when they got bit or how she got them in there. The last one that she puts into a room and has the gun is, we'll have to figure out who that is, but it's not necessarily important. It could be the mom or dad, because that one is kind of like, then they're really alone. And when we find out that's it, that makes sense, because this whole thing started with her trying to put out of their misery or whatever, whoever the last one is, because it would have been the parent. It makes sense logically too. It would have been the parent that was stashing the kids away and not able to kill them, and then sees her mother or father has transformed into this thing and can't do it, and leaves the door and closes it. And then that would be when we see the parents' room, we know that's who that was. And that would make sense that the story started with them trying to deal with their parents' death, when in fact the whole story is about them dealing with this other parent's death as well, and the loss of family. So
everything's basically going to hell.
Yeah, well, and it's a spiraling thing too, and that is kind of how it goes. Like when you are dying, I mean, you do lose everything, and eventually you accept the fact that it's not like the end of the 7 stages of grief is, oh, I'm better. It's happening, and I am accepting it, and that is probably a much more relieving feeling than the earlier stages, but still, it is what it is. So we start with the denial. This is after the gun or whatever, and they close the door, and they go and they sit down, and we see their kind of denial of everything, and like of what's going on. And then I think anger can be triggered by I was thinking bargaining, because denial is that when they go on. Anger is going to be the first family member when they think about that. Like maybe our denial creeps in through where they're thinking about stuff not happening, and they look at the one picture, or they're outside the door and it's clearly a little girl's room or whatever. Are we thinking a younger sister? It definitely cuts to the quick a little bit more.
Yeah.
Little girl, or we see the picture of the girl in the swing. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And that's the one we could use a picture for, because mom, what I'm thinking is that she'll actually call mom or dad. She'll call them mom or dad through the door. So the first one would be the little girl, and they maybe see the picture of a swing, and then go to that horrible memory. It immediately bleeds in of her dying, and then denial's over, and she's mad, and she breaks some stuff, screams, whatever, freaks out a little bit.
What if she's the one that accidentally breaks a window? And then she gets bit through the window. During the
at some point when she was
the
just
flashback.
angry.
Yeah.
And then we'd be moving anger down a little bit, but it's not like we can't do that. So they would go denial into the anger. She sees a picture, of her sister, and gets mad, freaks out. And then we have more. We're not going to get every little bit here, but we transition to bargaining. And bargaining is when she maybe that's when maybe at that point maybe early on, I think early on, before we start getting of all the deaths of everyone, we've got to during denial, before we get to anger, denial has to tell us a few things. All right, denial has to tell us that her parent died recently, not related to this, and there are zombies. And then anger, she gets mad, and that has to transition into, or this is kind of the way I'm thinking, and I'm sort of just going through it all right now, I know, but bargaining is when she eventually goes up to the doorway of her parents' room.
Puts hand on door. I love you.
Parents' door, she begs her or him to wake up.
Don't leave me.
Yeah, to wake up. Remember, don't leave me. That has to be said, basically. And then, she probably kind of falls down to the ground in that, because because that's that bargaining back into sadness. And then she gets up, and then as she's walking back towards the living room,
she could punch
stops.
a hole in the door and then gets bit by one of her family members.
It could be, or it could be that she tries to go into one of them in bargaining. Like maybe she actually goes in during the bargaining stage, and we hear her outside talking to her, and then we hear like her, like no, and we hear like a noise, and then we see her, because I don't want to even go in the parents' room.
So
you know what I mean?
Crunch.
Yeah. And then she comes out, and then she's like holding her arm, and we don't even see it. We know something happened, obviously, but she slams that door and like slides down, crying. I like that. That's a good idea, actually, because that simplifies it.
Yeah.
And then she gets up. She's walking back towards the living room area or dining room area. I'm imagining a trailer still. And she walks by, like the hallways in a trailer where you have the far end, the parents' room is usually the master. Yeah. Walks by the bathroom, walks by another doorway, and that doorway is open. And she walks in, and that's when we do the really creepy scene with the baby, the cradle, and it's moving around, and we hear it, and she kind of gets up close.
Did she just forget that there was a baby there?
No, I think it's more of the shocked terror
that's making noise.
Yeah, and
it's actually just alive.
And it's just she have that kind of blank look, and it's like she knows the baby's dead. It's like walking up to it should be baby's death should be like walking up to a casket, or the baby seeing the baby is like walking up to a casket at a funeral. And it's like that. It's like she's walking up to just see it again. And then we get, that kind of creeping up thing, and it should be like grays and stuff and be very funereal in that kind of scene. And almost like try and find a cradle that somehow looks that way, I guess. It wouldn't be like half closed or something like that.
I feel like the cradle should have kind of beaten up.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And stuff. Kind of like
old.
pencil.
Yes. Yeah, and she walks up towards it, and we almost see in, but it stops our view. Because that's depression, right? Going into that. And then that could go into acceptance. Like, it could even, then we see the bite. Maybe she goes back in and sits down, and we do some other footage or something like that. Or maybe just to keep the story tight, because she goes back to the room, she gets bit, she goes and sees the baby, and then she sees her arm that she's bit, and the baby's making noises. She gets the baby up in a bundle, because the family, we want them all together in the end. And she has it in a bundle, and then she goes, and then we get her opening the other door, and then she goes and she sits down. And then the other two, it's only other two then closing in.
But what about making food? Are we going to have that, or are we?
I don't know. I don't know if she would
I feel
make...
like that'd be like an extra shot.
Yeah.
Like a wasteful one, take too long.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking to get to the end quick. I want it to be very symbolic. I see definitely of having food around a table, or she could even sit down at the dinner table and there's just junk from what they've been surviving off of sitting on the table, and then the other two close in from both sides of the camera as she's holding the baby, and these shadowy zombie figures close in to her, and then cut to black.
She could open the doors, go sit on the couch, and turn on the TV, and it's just static.
Yeah, and they come in. Oh, I kind of like that too.
Because usually static, insane people watch static.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, and also it's the apocalypse, so you're thinking nothing's on. Yeah. I think that's a really good overview, honestly.
Thing is, we're going to have to get a TV that actually still has static.
Even this one does.
It does.
When you turn it on
Most
to a channel,
TVs
because there's nothing.
Blue.
They do, yeah. I think there's a setting or something like that, but yeah, we could do it. We could even overlay static, even though it's tough to get that and make it look right. I mean, Caleb could do it. Caleb will do it for us. Thanks, Caleb.
You can edit this.
Caleb, we're working on a project for you. This podcast is now called Bulb and Ryden Make Something for Caleb to edit.
Yeah.
There we go.
We know you need something to do.
He's so bored. He just has nothing. Nobody asks him to do stuff, so we're helping him out.
We don't pay him.
No, God, no. Are you kidding me? Jeez, even the mention of it's too silly. Really quickly, because I think we can wrap up after this. Seeing the baby is like walking up to a casket. I'm trying to think of other ways to apply that sort of dealing with the day of a funeral or of a death, how it can apply to the others. I don't know if there's anything else I can shoehorn in here. I like how these things are going so far. Like with the flowers, I don't know how to smoothly transition. Yeah, nothing's coming to me. I really like that idea of trying to make it like walking up to a casket and that feeling of like before you see the person. I really like it. I'm talking about something like terrifying and hurtful and something I've been through and you've been through that's just mortifying, and I'm excited that I've made a connection to a story. But honestly, it's stuff like this that helps me. Like after my mother passed away, it took a while, but writing stuff about it and about just general like my sadness and anger about it, that helped me more than anything else, more than therapy, talking to people, which I did do. That's a thought anyway of how to make it more, how to bring in more symbolism from the at least the modern American way and the modern civilized way of dealing with someone's death and how we handle it. That one's pretty good. That's a good accumulation point, or like a good climax point. We could
too. Bring in cremation to this, where as she's opening a door, she just pours gasoline through the house, and when they come up behind her, she just lights a match and drops it.
I could see that, and I see that could be a big ending, but I really like the idea of them staying together. Yeah. That's the idea, is that it's almost like they've gone to heaven in a way. At least their bodies are, because their bodies are going to be together, and zombies are sort of immortal, so they're all going to be together again. At least that smaller family is. We could have cremation, like his ashes are in a thing, and she sets down next to it. No, we're not doing that.
Episode reference.
Yes, it could be like that urn could be right there, and that could be another symbol. That could be our symbol that he's dead. She spells it. And and then what I'm thinking is she sits down and she looks up at like the mantle where his ashes are, and then they close in on her, kind of thing, and then they're all together in the same place.
Now we gotta find a house with a mantle.
Urn? Well, we can always shoot a mantle separately, and you know what I'm saying, and make it look like it's there, or like one of those like things that it just sticks out of a wall. It looks like, you know what I'm saying, you like screw in the metal bars that have the bars sticking out, and then you put the wooden shelf over. We have a couple of those. Okay, I think we've got a good story. So our last thing here, just some quick thoughts about production. Who do we see as potential cast members? Like the young kid, how young do we want him? Are we going to use a high school kid? Or are we going to
main character?
No, the younger girl. The young sister. I feel
like too young would be bad.
Number one, using a baby too.
Yeah, it's like, how much are they making babies, and how often?
No, too fast. Yeah.
Also, it's working with kids.
Yeah, which is tough.
Yeah, and it's like the younger they are, I feel like kind of a loss of connection because they haven't been around as long as if they're older.
I think if we go also too young, we have very few options for many reasons. First and foremost, that I'm comfortable working with, like, we know middle schoolers from musicals and stuff, but there's not a single one. Well, there's one or two that I know their families well enough that I would ask them to be part of this project. If we're going to do any gore makeup or anything like that, then it has to be somebody that we know, really well. So we're down to like either a young high schooler or a young-looking high schooler or Lily, my oldest daughter, who's 10. Lily could do it, so she's an option. Who are some, if we had to go with a high schooler, so it'd be like a younger sister with a...
That one kid that keeps coming in here.
Which one?
That, isn't his picture on here? On your podium? Yeah, I'm out
of... Connor?
I don't know.
Are you talking about a brother then? Yeah. Did we say sister or brother? We said sister, but we
Kelsey.
Can go either way. Kelsey could. She could play. That's the thing. She's getting older, though, and she's starting to look at... You can tell she's small, but you can tell she's like an older teenager. But it's a possibility. Who are some of the younger...
I'm trying to think of young kids that are in drama club.
Considering we're on a podcast, we probably can't...
We're probably cutting this part out.
We probably, because the names section. Yeah. And because we can talk about potential like people. Who would our main be? Or do we want to talk about that on a podcast?
I don't know.
I mean, Delaney's an easy answer. I feel sort of like... Almost like we can't use her because...
We've used her so many times.
Yeah.
And it's like it seems like all of our movies are going to have a connection.
Yeah, and not only that, other people are going to legitimately, rightfully be... Well, other people also will rightfully be like, why should I even try for stuff if they're going to cast the same person every time?
Yeah.
Which makes sense, and we're not a production company, we're a high school. She's just really good visual actor.
Yeah.
She's really, her close-up game is great. Her facial features is what I mean. Like, or not, her facial expressions, not features. She's really expressionate, she's comfortable doing that close-up acting. There are plenty of others, though. Honestly, we'd probably have to see a cast, or a casting. We'd really have to see close-up stuff too, and people just doing we'll have to get a good fake script for it, kind of thing.
This will probably be our next Halloween special.
This could be easily, yeah.
We just have to.
I actually really
finish
think
it.
so.
I really like this script already.
I do too. I love this idea. I think there's a lot to work with here. What about location? Do we think like a trailer would work?
I feel like a place like Goose Nibble.
Yeah, and we've had before. What's his name?
I don't know.
I don't know his name. Oh, well,
I wasn't
that's
there
right.
for
That's
Paranormal
right.
Pencil.
When we did Paranormal Pencil, we were talking about filming in Goose Nibble in J&J because Jason knows the guy that owns it, and he even said we could use an empty one and bring furniture in. So that's prime right there. The problem is we're talking about
bringing in furniture.
Well, and to an extent that's fine, but if we're going to we would need to furnish it decently so it didn't look like an empty place where we took in one couch and one table. We would need a few
also,
things.
like the actual rooms would have to be furnished
only as much that we'd see, because I don't think I don't really want to show inside the rooms either anyway. I want it to maintain in this one small space, and I want the rooms to be that off-screen, like, mystery, like, scary thing. The fact that they're there is frightening, and we don't know what's in it, And there's shadows coming from underneath the door. They're like, you see like feet moving a little bit, and blood, and that kind of stuff. Okay, a trailer does sound good. It just sounds like the setting for this because the walls are so thin, and because the space is so confined. And because outside even, you can hear people up
bedrooms, there's like a hall straight down.
Yes.
And they're all next to each other. It's like, just nail my microphone.
Yeah, they're all right by each other. So yeah, I like that. All right.
Okay. Well, I think that's a wrap.
Goodbye, Jacob.
Bye, Jeffrey. Thank you guys for listening to The Words and the Bees.
We'll see you guys next time, except we won't because this is a podcast and that's not how vision works.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Bye.